Hi, Gary Stearman. I'd like to talk for a few moments about the dirty bomb, a weapon of mass destruction. Now, WMD, or weapon of mass destruction, is a term that has come to be very common. At first, years ago, it was only applied to nuclear weapons, atomic and hydrogen bombs. And then later on, it became attached to the ability to contaminate a large area in a long-lasting way. For example, poison gases that have a long time, a long residual effect would be considered a weapon of mass destruction. Today, I think the most often talked about weapon of mass destruction is wrapped up in the idea of surrounding ordinary explosives with nuclear waste material, exploding that, and when in the explosion, the resulting dust cloud is radioactive, and essentially what it does is spread radioactive fallout. So all you have to do is get upwind, and presto, you've got a weapon of mass destruction. Well, this from the UK Independent, the headline is ISIS Dirty Bomb. Jihadists have seized enough, quote, radioactive material to build their first weapon of mass destruction. It's not a very pleasant thought, particularly when you have watched ISIS, as I have lately. First paragraph, the ISIS militant group has seized enough radioactive material from government facilities to suggest that it has the capacity to build a large and devastating dirty bomb, according to Australian intelligence reports. ISIS declared its ambition to develop weapons of mass destruction from the most recent edition of its propaganda magazine, which is called Dabiq. And Indian defense officials have previously warned of the possibility that militants could acquire a nuclear weapon from Pakistan. Now, that would be a full-fledged nuclear weapon, but the word is that Pakistan would also sell nuclear waste material to ISIS. Again, they would wrap that around ordinary high explosives and detonate those explosives upwind from a target, killing the enemy by radioactive fallout. In an interview recently, a lot of people are really, really worried. Australian Foreign Minister Julie Bishop and NATO have both expressed deep concerns about the materials seized by ISIS from research centers, those would be nuclear research centers, and hospitals that would normally only be able or available to governments. And she says, this is really worrying. When ISIS swept across Syria and across Iraq, she said the insurgents did not just clear out the cash from local banks, they also cleared out anything that could be used as a weapon. And they are also said to be weaponizing gases, such as industrial chlorine gas. If you've ever read about World War I, the gas attacks of World War I were chlorine gas. Chlorine, you spread it out, it's heavier than air, it spreads across the landscape. You breathe chlorine, you die. And that's a fact. And so ISIS is very much a threat now, weaponizing in very, very strange ways. And you know, as I read about this, I thought to myself, this reminds me of something that I saw in the Bible years ago, and you can find it in several places, and that is the term east wind. And invariably, and you can look it up yourself, just use a concordance and look up the phrase east wind, and you will discover that every time you do, it's connected with a curse or with great destruction, a great damage, calamity. And in fact, that goes not only for Israel and a curse against Israel. For example, Babylon, when they captured Israel in 606 BC and following, came like an east wind. It's a metaphor used for great devastating destruction. You find in Psalm 48 the use of this term, and in Psalm 48 it's used to describe the destruction of ships that came against Israel. And Psalm 48:7 says, "Thou breakest the ships of Tarshish with an east wind." And so an east wind is an accursed wind, if you will. And I was thinking to myself, what would ISIS do if they wanted to wipe out Israel? Of course, ISIS occupies the territory to the north and to the east, and they have swept into the Golan Heights. They are now considering a plunge into Jordan. All of this would put ISIS directly to the east of Israel, and all they would have to do is wait for a good east wind and detonate a few dirty bombs and allow all those nuclear materials to drift across Israel, and the result would be absolutely horrendous. And I'm thinking in terms of that east wind, something that I also have noted in Isaiah 17. Starting in verse 12, "Woe to the multitude of many people which make a noise like the noise of the seas, and the rushing of the nations that make a rushing like the rushing of mighty waters." And this is talking about a Middle Eastern invasion. And the next verse, 13, says, "The nations shall rush like the rushing of many waters, but God shall rebuke them, and they shall flee far off, and shall be chased as a chaff of the mountains before the wind, like a rolling thing before a whirlwind." And again, you have sort of an evil wind blowing here in this particular war. And it's a 24-hour war, as we've said many times before. The 14th verse says, "And behold, at eventide trouble, and before the morning he is not. This is the portion of them that spoil us, and the lot of them that rob us." And so there is an invasion staged to destroy Israel, but the enemy of Israel is destroyed instead. And an evil wind is said to blow. You know, ISIS now has nuclear material, research material. All they have to do is put it in a box with a little plastic explosive, put it in the trunk of a car, park it somewhere, wait for a good east wind to blow across Israel. That's a terrifying thought. I'm sure the Israelis have thought far ahead of me in this matter, and they have devised protections of various sorts. But it's fascinating that the experts are now saying that that particular weapon of mass destruction could be a reality. Hey, we're going to be watching the Middle East. Some amazing things are going on there. You be watching too. I'm Gary Stearman. Have a great day in the Lord, everybody. Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com, where you can sign up for our free email newsletter, or follow us at facebook.com/prophecywatchers. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.